How's it going, Fan Expo Canada? Let's hear you. Doesn't sound like I'm a Fan Expo Canada. Let's hear it, Toronto. That's more like it. How many of you are big fans of the movie Under Siege? Like I am. Oh, good. I'm in the right room. I was worried I went to the wrong place. Any martial artists in the audience themselves? Okay, good. I like seeing it. Very good. Now, we are going to take audience questions. This is Mr. Seagal's first time with us at Fan Expo. We want to show him a great time. So I'm going to start things off, ask a couple of questions, get things rolling. Use that time, give some thought to what it is you want to ask him. We want this to be the best experience humanly possible for this man because we want to see him back, right? Yeah? We want to show him the kind of welcome that only Fan Expo Canada can do, right, Toronto? All right, now one more time, really blow the roof off this place for me. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steven Seagal.
Got a lot of chairs up here. Does that mean we're in a lot of people? Okay.
Now, I wanted to start talking to you about martial arts itself. At what point did martial arts become a part of your life? How did this lifelong passion start for you?
My father was a football coach in Michigan, and
Here I go. I think. There we go.
well, I went to a football game with him, and at the football halftime, they had an old Japanese master come in there and start throwing people around like they were paper dolls. And I looked at my father and I said, "Daddy, that's what I was born to do." And after that, I started searching around for people that could teach me. Now, back in those days, there weren't many at all dojos in karate or aikido or kung fu. They just didn't exist in America much. You would find masters that were Asian masters that were usually cooks in hotels and restaurants and stuff like that. And so finding a few of those guys and, staying inside that sort of secret network, I started with karate, kung fu, and then later on in life I started Aikido, and the rest is history.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the teachers that you worked with? I've trained with people like Chris Kent, Dan Inosanto. Who are the teachers that have meant the most to you, and what is it that they brought to your practice, to the spiritualism that's attached to your practice?
The first karate master that I had was an amazing master, and when I first met him, I asked him if he would teach me, and he kind of waited until he got to know me enough to feel as though I had the right intentions. And he was teaching out of his home, and he started making me do something called the makiwara. Makiwara was boards that were wrapped together in straw and reed, and you just punch that makiwara, and you learn how to punch for about 2 years. And you had different forms of makiwaras, and you would learn shuto, strike from the top, strike straight in, strikes turning over. And so I kept saying to him, "I see you have other students here. I want to fight them. I want to learn fighting, which is called kumite." And he said, "Why don't you learn how to punch before you want to fight?" And that was his attitude. So he really made me learn the basics. He made me learn kata and punching, and then from there I finally got it to start to do kumite and fight with the other students, and that was the beginning.
How did you find your way into the movies? Was this something? It was a passion for you to perform in movies? Were you discovered by someone?
I went to Japan to study the martial arts and study Aikido and a few different arts in the late 60s, early 70s. And in the mid 80s, around 1985 or so, I came back to teach in America and some different, I was teaching around Europe and Asia and different countries. And in America, folks kept saying, "Hey man, have I seen you in a movie, or you'd be great in the movies?" And one day a guy called Michael Ovitz came over to my dojo and asked me if I'd do a demonstration for Warner Brothers, and I said, well, okay. I didn't necessarily want to be a movie star or anything, but I did it. And from there, I demonstrated, and they said, "Hey, pick one of these scripts. We'll make a movie with you, any one of them." And that was sort of the beginning.
What have you found to be rewarding about making movies? Do you feel like you're able to bring something to your fans in particular that makes doing these action films rewarding for you?
I love, the idea that the arts of discipline and philosophy and spirituality can inspire people, can teach them about themselves, wake people up, help them become a better human being, give them health, happiness, long life, and teach them to help others. That's what the martial arts means to me.
Do you have one of your films that you are most passionate about, that means the most to you personally, that whether the making of it or the message of the film is especially meaningful to you?
Well, as far as I know, I'm the only actor that's done 2 major environmental movies, and I am proud of them. I'm proud of Fire Down Below, and that also had a lot of music in it. I'm a musician, and enjoyed that. So I did Fire Down Below and something called On Deadly Ground, and those 2 were great in the sense that I think the contribution to mankind and society was quite important. I made other movies like Under Siege, which was wildly successful, but I think the things that matter most are also important to me.
You mentioned music. I know that that's another passion of yours. Were you playing music from an early age? What role has it served in your life?
Yeah, I started playing music almost before I started anything. And when you say what role, it's just something I fell in love with from my early youth. And I was lucky enough to meet and play with most of the great blues legends of America. And they really taught me a lot about the blues, and big part of my life, and I really love the blues. And I'm sorry to say that I think almost 100% of those blues legends are now gone. I don't think there's almost any of them left alive.
And the beautiful thing is that we have their records to reflect on. What blues artists for you are like comfort food, are that thing that you really like to put on that makes you feel good?
Well, I loved Albert Collins. I felt that he was one of the greatest blues guitar players alive. He was like a father to me and great inspiration. B.B. King was like a father to me. B.B. taught me a lot about life. Got to play with B.B. a lot. Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Albert King, those guys were monsters, really great guys.
These days, what is it that you gravitate to? What do you enjoy entertainment-wise with your free time? Is it mostly music? Is it films? What do you seek out for relaxation when you're not working?
When I'm in America, believe it or not, I like music and shooting. I shoot a lot, pistols, long-range shooting, and then I also like, playing the blues, and so those are the things that are very relaxing for me. Target shooting and blues.
I want to turn things over to the audience. We have people out there with questions. I saw a few hands. Don't get shy now just because he's out here. Oh, she is very enthusiastic, so we got to go to you first.
Okay,
Wonder Woman.
Absolutely. Above the Law, Hard to Kill, Under Siege. I watched all your movies, and my favorite of the movies when you take the guy down and you always snap that wrist. Always. Is it as easy to do as you make it seem, or is it like a really hard move?
For me, it's that easy. For you, it wouldn't be.
Back there in the green shirt. Yep.
I don't know if you could tell the story of, I think it's when you go over to Machida and Anderson Silva, you were apparently backstage showing them that front kick right before you were knocking people out. Is this true, and do you have a story behind that?
Well, I don't remember the times that I was with them teaching them, but my wife, who's standing there in the back, has it on film. One of the times I spent a lot of hard work teaching Leodo and Anderson Silva that kick. And to the amateur eye, it looks like sort of a normal front kick, but it's not. It's a little different. I do that front kick different so that it's really hard to see it coming. And I do believe that, I inspired them both to use that because I was there with them, told them to use it and told them it was going to work, and they did, and they both got championships from it. I think that Lyoto knocked out Randy Couture, and Anderson knocked out Vito Belfort. And, so people can say, I didn't teach them that, but it's on film enough that, you'd have to be pretty slow in the head to think that I didn't.
As a follow-up to that, MMA fighters, what is it that you find makes somebody a lasting presence in the ring? What is it that makes an Anderson Silva the kind of fighter that he is?
Well, it's really superior attitude and superior technique. And Anderson had unusual technique, but in my opinion, nobody can stay for very long. It's so competitive and so difficult to stay on top of that world. And it's not just because it's, a dangerous world, but it's because there's one thing that nobody ever thinks about, and most people don't think about, and most people don't want to talk about, and that is, no matter how good you are, there's always that wild card and element of luck and bad luck, where somehow somebody gets a lucky punch in, and no matter who you are, you get tagged, and sometimes that can be, the end of that round or worse. So.
Next up, way in the back. Working with Tom Arnold.
I don't really remember him very well because that was.
I don't know if Tom Arnold remembers Tom Arnold very well.
Because that was a long time ago. I always wondered what kind of energy he had. I could never really identify it because he talked so fast and so much. Funny guy, but very unusual character. Yeah.
Right there with the hat. Yeah.
I think everyone's a big fan of the Expendables movies. The one thing that was missing was Steven Seagal from every media clip, anything like that. So if they were to make another one, is there a chance that you would be in something like that?
I had my reasons for. They asked me several times to be in several of them, and they keep asking me, I guess. But I had my reasons for not wanting to be in them. I think ethics and morals and, a positive attitude on the way you treat people are all really important things in who you make movies with and who you do business with. And so I just had my reasons for not wanting to go back into that, go into that group of people.
Right there. Mm-hmm. You.
Excuse me. Can you describe a few instances before Under Siege where you fought for something really hard and passionately about your films that got in, and something you fought for that didn't get in? Let's say that the producers or directors didn't want to go with you in that direction.
Well, without naming movies, I can just tell you that, in my opinion, in the movie business, it doesn't matter if you're perfect for the role. Doesn't matter if you're the best actor in the world. Doesn't matter if you've found a movie and a role that you're the most perfect person on earth for. It matters who you know and how you know them and how you know how to play the politics. And if you're like me, who never played the politics, it even more didn't matter how good I was for the roles. And there have been some movies that I really wanted to play that I thought I could have killed the role, but I just didn't play the politics.
It's got to be the right environment. Can I ask you as a follow-up, who have you worked with, director-wise, auteur-wise, that has been really easy to work with in particular, or who you vibe with really well, on the positive side of things?
I think, probably the guy that I enjoyed working with the most was Robert Rodriguez, and easy to work with and tremendous talent.
Who's up next? Over here.
Mr. Seagal, what's your favorite fight scene?
It's like picking a favorite child, huh?
I think my fight scene in Out for Justice, where I used the cue ball, was probably my favorite.
The right weapon for the right fight. Let's go right over here.
I was wondering if you could possibly talk about your working relationship with Andrew Davis, because you've done a number of films with him. Was he easy to work with?
Andrew is a pretty. I don't think he works anymore. I think he's retired, isn't he? I haven't seen anything. Did he just do something? Really?
Well, if you're friends with him, tell him to call him.
I mean, you know, he's a smart guy and fairly articulate. He was originally a cameraman, so he kind of knows how he wants things to look and see. He also, in my opinion, understands how to be, you know, politically correct and fairly political most of the time. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for him as a director.
Back there in the yellow shirt.
What was it like working with Michael Caine?
Working with Michael Caine.
I mean, I think he's a multiple time Academy Award nominee, and he's maybe won, I think, has he?
Yeah, I think so.
He's
At
an
least
Academy Award winner, I think. He's you know, fairly well-known, you know, British artist, very talented. I directed him and found him to be intelligent, articulate, good actor, humble. And I remember I went to a preview of the movie we did together. I can't remember if it was England or America. I think it was England. And I sat next to him and he said, "Man, I think the movie really turned out good." And because, you know, really, in order to talk about the environment and the bad guys who are destroying the environment, it's a very, very sticky wicker and it's complicated. And you have to use humor, you have to use sarcasm, you have to use wit. And I think I used all those things in this movie to sort of, you know, manipulate the situation in such a way that I could lead the minds of the people to really see what's happening in the world now. I made that movie, I don't know how long ago. My wife could probably tell you wherever she is, but she's around here somewhere. But 20 years later, Al Gore makes the exact same movie and gets an Academy Award and a Nobel Peace Prize for the exact same movie. So I was a little ahead of my time there. But I don't know, you know, I enjoyed Michael. He certainly said that he enjoyed it. You never know in the movie business and in Hollywood because there's so many rumors and so much gossip, you know. Then, you know, I heard someone saying that he said it was the worst movie he ever did. Do I believe he said that? It's kind of hard for me to believe, but who knows?
They're telling me we're having a little trouble hearing you in the back. Sorry.
Okay,
There we
sorry.
go. Is that better? Can you
Sorry,
hear me in the back?
guys.
We good? All right, good. Good. Very good. Whenever they send me notes on stage, I want to make sure that we're doing right by you guys. We have somebody else in the back with the red wig. Is that an Ariel from The Little Mermaid? All right, Ariel, sing your song.
So my cousin and I used to watch your TV series about your life as a police officer. How do you manage to outlive your life as an actor?
That's a good question. I used to make about 1 or 2 movies a year. And when I made those movies, I would do, you know, I wouldn't be busy more than, you know, 6 to 8 weeks usually. And that leaves you 11 months out of the year. So if you're doing, you know, or 10 months out of the year, whatever. So what I would do is I would do a movie or 2, and I would still have 6 to 10 months of the year left. And I would deploy. I would go to Louisiana and deploy, or Arizona and deploy. I was a police officer in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Right there.
Good, brother.
Welcome to Toronto, first of all.
Thank you.
I just want to say my mom is a big fan of yours. And,
I hope you're a big fan of his too.
I grew up watching you. I remember
But anytime you're a police officer, I went to the police academy in about 1982, 83. And shortly after that, went to Louisiana and deployed in a place called Jefferson Parish. And I can tell you that people think that being a police officer, a lot of them think that it's easy. Of course, those times were very different than nowadays. But anytime you go out, whether you're undercover or whether you have the uniform on, you go out as a police officer and you have to be ready to give your life, and that means die, for a complete stranger. And that's the way I was. That was the ethics I had, the morals I had, and the devotion I had to what I believed in. So being a police officer is not a walk in the park. It's something where you every day put your badge and your gun on, and you know you might die that day, but you also know that you might save a lot of people that day. And so for me, it was a great honor to be able to serve not only my community or my department, but mankind.
Which one would you remake?
You mean a remake?
Or anything, if you could go back and redo the same movie, but maybe the way you want to do it, which one would you have done?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, were there any that were enjoyable, but you had a couple notes, you had a couple things that you wish you could have tweaked, it was almost there, or one that was just such a good time that you would go back and just, relive it again?
Maybe Above the Law. Yeah, I would have sort of made a lot of changes in that, but for me, it was a great first movie. But I could make it even better if I did it now.
And then just a couple rows behind, yeah.
Is there anyone here that you're excited to see?
You fanboying out over anybody upstairs? Anybody you're a big fan of?
I asked Bruno, who's the really handsome gentleman who brought me here. I said, "Who's here?" Because he said, well, a lot of people canceled and they have all these replacements. And I said, well, who's here? He said, I don't know. So.
Well, I can share a story because I was on stage with somebody earlier who was excited out of his mind to meet Steven Seagal, and that was Mario Lopez. Mario said, oh man, I just came down here for this panel. I was just back there hanging out with Seagal, man. That just made my childhood. What was it like, shooting the breeze with Mario Lopez?
What a cool guy, man. What a great guy. Really ethical, moral. You can just tell by the way he talks about his children and the martial arts. Wonderful man, and I was really happy to meet him.
Who else? Right here.
I just have a question. First off, it's a pleasure to meet you. I grew up watching all of your movies. You yourself have become such an icon over the years, but becoming an icon draws a lot of parodies. So for instance, like Mad TV had one, SNL. As Steven Seagal, is that something that you can laugh at, or is just something you actually have no time for?
Oh, we're literally going on deadly ground. She's asking about parodies of Steven Seagal, Mad TV, Saturday Night Live.
I know more than I should talk about, in terms of some of the people who write things and do things to disparage other people. But I can say that a lot of times, because I'm not the only one that people, have made fun of, as you know. I mean, there's a young friend of mine named Jason Momoa who was supposed to be here who canceled. Yeah, I don't know Jason so well that I would swear to it, but my feeling about Jason is a very humble, very spiritual, very good man. I read an article the other day, I won't even tell you the kinds of terrible, outrageous, defaming, disgusting things they were writing about him. And the long and the short is, I think there's always people who think, I can be bigger than them. I can be better. I can get more attention. I can get more money if I screw them over by lying and disparaging them. And there's that, and there's the jealous, and there's the haters. And they will always be there. And like Daniel Osanto, who I think you said you know, is my blood brother since the very beginning, probably one of the best knife fighters in the world. And I got some funny stories I should tell you about Danny if we have time. But
But I mean, people have been talking a lot about Bruce Lee with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood coming out, and Dan is one of the people who came out speaking very specifically about Bruce.
We can certainly talk about that today if you want, because I was there, you know. But
Yeah.
the long and the short is, Danny always used to say, people always chase the guy who, you know, on the football field, they chase the guy with the ball, meaning, you know, he's the most important guy. So I guess some people say, hey, you should be honored that people are disparaging you and making fun of you and lying about you and making up bullshit rumors about you. But I don't have time for it. I find it revolting and you know, just disgusting.
Well, because we brought it up, I'd love to follow up. You know, if you're comfortable with talking about it. A lot has been said about this portrayal of Bruce Lee in this new Tarantino movie. Which, to be fair, I have not seen the movie, but having trained with people who knew him very directly, what I have been told has not been very encouraging about the way that they have portrayed Bruce the
so
Man.
the real question is, where did Quentin Tarantino get this idea that, you know, some stunt person beat up Bruce Lee? I personally think it was just some random, you know, writing with people who wrote that, and that there was no rumor behind it, and that's why he wrote it. But I may be very, very wrong. Gene LaBelle, who wants to say that, you know, he's the stunt guy who beat up Bruce Lee. Gene LaBelle is somebody who made his entire career lying about who he beat up. He beat up Jim Brown. I don't know if you guys know who Jim Brown is, but he was one of the greatest football players in the history of the world, and a very, very, very tough, nasty guy if he had to get nasty. And I promise you, Gene LaBelle did not beat him up. But Gene LaBelle calls himself Judo Gene LaBelle. We had experts look in every Kodokan, Budokan, Judokai, everywhere to see if this guy had one black belt. We couldn't find one. And what everybody came back to me and said is, he's never even studied judo. So he walks around telling everybody he's Judo Gene LaBelle, tells everybody he beat me up, he choked me out, you know, he beat up Bruce Lee, he choked out Bruce Lee, he went to some big, you know, fight somewhere where there's some people fighting in the audience and they were endangering people, so he beat up one of them and killed him, and he had to go into hiding. I mean, the guy is a pathological liar. And I personally do not think that Gene LaBelle ever beat up anybody, and if he did, you know, it's not, you know,
It definitely wasn't Bruce Lee.
it wasn't Bruce Lee. And I you know, I was very, very close friends with James Coburn, and saw Bruce over at James's house many, many times. And I can tell you for sure, Bruce is also the kind of guy that you know, Gene LaBelle did not choke out or beat up. So it's, for me, it's very disappointing that, you know, people in Hollywood can make their lives by making up bullshit, you know, to try to make themselves something that they're not.
You know, using a brilliant spiritual man like Bruce Lee as a prop is just, it's about the biggest insult you can make.
Especially after he's dead.
Yeah.
Just a absolute travesty.
To flip things over to the positive side of things, can you talk a little bit about how you feel about Bruce Lee, the spiritual element to Jeet Kune Do, the practice that he developed, you know, put some positivity out in the world about this man.
You know, listen, I wasn't Bruce Lee's best friend. I got to watch him, listen to him, be around him a little bit. And I can tell you the one thing that was the most inspiring about him was he was very, very, very driven. Very driven. This guy never stopped practicing, never stopped, you know, scientifically studying how to get better. And out of all his handwork and feet work and everything else, I can tell you, you know, as a martial artist, the one thing that he had that I was really impressed with was his sidekick. He had an amazing sidekick. Amazing. Yeah.
Now, they're telling me we've got time for one more question.
Well, this
Who
guy's
wants
had
the
his
absolute
hand
most?
up for
This
an
guy,
hour.
all right.
Yeah.
Better be good.
Hi, that's an honor, sir. I've been a paramedic for 15 years. Got a car accident. I work with at-risk youth and gang-related kids in Winnipeg. And we use I have a martial art background. I grew up boxing, got into martial arts, kickboxing. And we use martial arts for a lot of these kids in our school to get rid of their anger management and stuff like that. And I was just curious if you reached out to a lot of at-risk youth or trauma-related kids and taught them or spoke to them,
I have done something a little bit different. What I've done most of my life is, and I don't do it right now because of how my life has changed, but for 25, 30 years of my life, I went around to hospitals and hostels and different places and spent time with children who are dying of terminal illnesses. And I didn't invite the difference between me, and I shouldn't say this in many other celebrations, not all. I never ever invited the press or brought along camera people or even told people I was doing it. It's just something that I did to spend time and try to encourage and help and bring some kind of joy or anything I could do for children who are dying of cancer and all kinds of different life-threatening diseases. That's what I did with my life and my time.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And to wrap things up, I just wanted to ask you one last thing. You've been upstairs signing autographs, meeting your fans, having them telling stories to you about what your work has meant to them, what the work you have done outside of the work that people buy DVDs for, and so on. What has it been like getting that energy from your fans? What has it been like getting those stories from people about what your work has meant to them, what it has helped get them through?
I mean, this is what we're here for, man. This is what gives us the faith and love and inspiration to keep on doing what we do, is knowing that you guys are there to love us and support us and appreciate us.
Can we blow the roof off this place for Mr. Steven Seagal? No, you can do better than that, Toronto. Let's really hear it for him. We want him to come back, show him some love.